Are you out of your mind? Exclaimed my lawyer. Their case against you is completely solid. There are around a dozen witnesses, your wife included, and crystal clear footage from not just one or two, but three different security cameras all captured in broad daylight. The tool has both your fingerprints and DNA on it. Plus, there's extensive documentation of your motive. Not to mention, police officers caught you during the act and recorded it on their body cameras. Yeah, those are some solid points. I understand why he might think I'm crazy for turning down the plea deal they're offering. It's either plead guilty and face 5 years plus 5 on probation, or risk a conviction in court and possibly get slapped with 15 to 20 years. But then again, if I were smart, I wouldn't have ended up in this mess in the first place. It would have been better if I hadn't committed the crime at all, or if I did, I should have been smarter about it and covered my tracks. But nope, I did it, and I didn't care who knew. Listen, you hired me to guide you through this. I'm telling you, your chances at trial are slim to none. The DA is offering this deal because they want to clear the backlog of court cases. Taking the deal saves time and money for everyone. My advice? Take the deal. You won't win this in court. No lawyer can save you here. I can't even mount a defense. If we go to trial, I'll just be sitting there while the DA tears you apart. There's nothing to build a case on. After the prosecution rests, I'll rest my case too. I can't call a single witness to help you. You're in deep trouble. Your only option is to minimize the damage by serving the least time possible. Going to trial will only drain your bank account and make things worse for you. So, lawyer, when's the trial? How long will it take? And when's the sentencing? I asked. He seemed lost for a moment, realizing I wasn't bothered. Due to the backlog, the trial's in about 6 months. Before that, there's arraignment, hearings on charges, evidence reviews, motions from both sides, and more. I'll try to delay it, but it won't change much. Okay. Call my sister about bail. She'll handle it. It won't come cheap. Not your concern. Send her the bills, too. He left, probably thinking of a mental evaluation. Maybe there's an insanity plea. Fine by me. I'll pay him more for his efforts, not that it'll matter. Now let me rewind a couple months. I'm Dan Malloy, 56, married to Kimberly for 25 years. We've got 2 daughters, Gina, 22, a college senior in mechanical engineering like me, and Sue, 20, studying business administration. They'll take over my small firm when I retire. We're not rich, but comfortable. With a home we're close to paying off, decent cars, and savings for retirement at 65. Kimberly has stayed home to care for the kids since Gina was born. When both girls started school, she volunteered at various charities during the day. Once Sue went off to college, she upped her volunteer hours. I was supportive of this, and it kept her happy while giving us more evening opportunities. Our bed life was fantastic when we were dating, engaged, and early in our marriage. Kids slowed us down a bit, but we still had regular and enjoyable closeness. As time went on and our responsibilities grew, it became less frequent and less adventurous, but it still fulfilled us both. We managed about 2 to 3 times a week. One bright autumn morning, everything fell apart. I'd gone to the doctor a week earlier for tests because I'd been feeling exhausted and off for a while. Kim noticed and pushed me until I made the appointment. When I left the doctor's office, I felt defeated. The test results were in, and I couldn't bring myself to go back to work. I needed time to think, to make plans, and figure out how to break the news to my family. I headed to a small sports bar to grab a burger and drink while processing the news. As I stopped at a red light near the local college, I saw Kim's car pull out. It wasn't unusual for her to tutor students there. She loved literature and had time to spare. What caught me off guard was that she wasn't alone. Sitting in the passenger seat was a young, large man driving. They hadn't noticed me, but from what I could see, Kim's attention was solely on him. Something felt off about the situation. When they turned onto the road ahead of me, going the same way, I decided to follow, keeping a couple of cars between us. But it didn't matter. 5 minutes later, I saw them pull into a budget motel. As they turned right into the motel parking lot, I turned left into a strip mall parking lot. I parked by the street and watched them leave her car and go into the motel lobby. A few minutes later, they walked along the second-floor balcony and entered a room. It was pretty obvious they weren't there to study literature, more like anatomy. 2 hours later, I saw them leave the room. I had my digital camera ready. I always carry it in case I need to take project photos. With the zoom lens, I captured detailed pictures of them. He had his hand on her rear as they walked back toward the lobby. I recognized the guy this time. He's the top receiver for the university's football team. He's a senior, and NFL scouts are eyeing him at every game. Predictions put him in the mid to late first round in the draft. Even the toughest critics say he won't go past the second round. The kid's destined to be an NFL star. I'm a big football fan, so I keep up with the games and analysis. It comes in handy for office pools and betting. I win more often than not. Well, damn, she's cheating on me. That's a deal breaker. We've talked about this before. Forsaking all others means a lot to me. It's a promise before God, family, and friends. It's not something you break. Till death do us part. That's the deal. Sure, there's divorce. Don't want me anymore? Fine. If you're dumb enough to leave, I'm smart enough to let you. I fought for her once already, back when we were dating and engaged. I won that fight when she said I do. I shouldn't have to fight for her again. My entire strategy needed an overhaul, given the circumstances. After they drove off, I waited about 10 minutes before starting my car and hitting the road. I ended up at the sports bar I had originally planned to visit. Taking my notepad with me, I chose a booth in the back for some solitude. I ordered a burger, beer, and bourbon from the waitress, then got down to planning. I scribbled notes as ideas came to me, organizing them into 4 columns. The likely consequences for me, how to handle my daughters, what to do about that witch, and how to deal with the guy. Me. Did it even matter? Not really. There was a bigger issue overshadowing everything in this situation. I couldn't forgive or forget what my unfaithful wife had done. Reconciliation was out of the question. Plus, my relationship with my daughters was also in jeopardy. While I cherished them deeply, I realized I might miss out on important milestones like their college graduations and weddings. I might never get to be a part of their children's lives. Speaking of my daughters, I wanted to ensure they were well taken care of. Though they were grown, I still wanted them to thrive. They had college to finish and careers to build before taking over the family business. I also wanted to ensure they had financial stability until they were fully independent. Leaving them with more resources to improve their lives would be a bonus. As for that witch, I wanted to make her pay as much as possible. I planned to give her a real taste of betrayal. She chose to cheat on me with some athlete. I would show her what real betrayal feels like. After giving her my all, this is how she repays me. Well, she wouldn't get anything more from me. A-hole. He stole something precious from me, so I aimed to retaliate by taking something precious from him. After finishing my brainstorming session, I started creating a flowchart. For those who aren't familiar, a flowchart is a tool used in engineering to map out decisions or events. It's like an if or document. You start with the first step, which has 2 possible outcomes. Depending on the outcome, you proceed to the next step, and so on, until the problem is solved. It's a logical way to tackle almost any problem and anticipate potential obstacles. 4 hours, 3 beers, and 2 double bourbons later, I had outlined my plan. However, after 3 beers and 2 double bourbons, I wasn't in the best shape to confront the other woman. Though I probably shouldn't have, I drove back to the office. I wasn't completely drunk, having had 5 drinks over 4 hours, but I might have been over the legal limit. I have a small room with a bed and bathroom at the office, which I sometimes use during late-night work sessions. While not common, it wasn't unheard of for me to stay there overnight. I sent a brief text to the other woman claiming I had work deadlines and would be spending the night at the office due to unexpected issues. The next morning, I got up and continued with my plans. By noon, I had all the details written down in a step-by-step manner. By the end of the day, I had gone through each step carefully, making revisions whenever I spotted minor issues. I figured I had about 30 days to sort everything out before reaching the final step. I stayed at work 2 hours later than usual to adjust the timeline to fit everything in before heading home. By then, I had my emotions under control enough to act somewhat normal. I also came up with a story to tell my wife about why I was so tired and what the doctor had advised. Basically, I planned to tell her that my age and overwork were catching up to me, and the doctor suggested I cut back on work and exercise more. I'd play the tired card for a while, making excuses for why I wouldn't be up for closeness until my new routine kicked in. Sure, I had no intention of getting intimate with her again, but she didn't need to know that. Who knows how many other guys she's fooling around with? I managed to have a regular evening at home. I didn't have to pretend to be tired because I really was exhausted. Kim tried to be affectionate, but I was just too drained from all the mental stress and the restless sleep I had the night before. She asked about the project I was supposedly working on, and I fed her some story about a design project with tight deadlines and changing requirements. Since she wasn't involved in the company, I could pretty much tell her anything and she'd buy it. The next morning I got up early because I had some appointments and people to talk to. It's worth mentioning that most of our business and possessions were in my name alone. Even though we started the business after we got married, I was the one bringing in the income and had the necessary qualifications. The business was set up as a sole proprietorship, with me as the owner, and Kim's name wasn't on any of the documents. The same goes for our house. The title and mortgage were solely in my name. It just seemed simpler that way. Since Kim didn't have any income, adding her to the paperwork would only lower our credit rating. At the time, it didn't bother us because we were planning on being together for the long haul. I even made a will that named her as the beneficiary. By the end of the week, I had the new will signed and notarized. I also hired a private investigator to keep an eye on my wife and gather more evidence of her actions. I had no doubts, but I wanted to provide my daughters with concrete proof. That part was relatively straightforward. The next steps would be a bit more complex and require assistance beyond legal and business professionals. "Hey Carly, how's it going?" I said when she picked up her phone. "I better be your favorite sister, considering I'm your only sister, jackass," she replied. "So what do you need?" "What do I need? I'm deeply hurt that you automatically assume I want something when I call you." "Yeah, right. Every time you start with that favorite talk, you're after something." "What is it?" "Well, ignoring your sarcastic comments, I actually want to see my favorite and most beautiful sister. It's been a while, and I thought you might enjoy lunch on me today." "Oh boy, it's even worse than I thought." "Favorite, beautiful, and you're picking up the tab. Let me check the sky for the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse." My sister and I got along really well, especially since our parents passed away. She divorced her cheating husband about 5 years ago and went back to school earning her MBA. Currently, she's an accounts manager at a local manufacturing firm, one of my clients. Honestly, she's overqualified for that role and just needs more experience before she climbs the ladder to vice president. If she had started with them right out of college after getting her MBA, she could have been CEO by now. Instead, she got married to that a-hole and took a break from work. "Seriously, Carr, I need your help. I have to see you today. Take the whole afternoon off and meet me at Hammerhead's at 11 o'clock. My voice was desperate, and I'm sure she could hear the strain in it. "Oh no, it's bad, isn't it? It's even worse than you think. Please, Carr." "Of course, big bro. I'll be there. You're not just my big brother. I owe you everything for what you've done for me." "You don't owe me a thing, sis. I help because we're family. When family needs help, you step up." "Okay, then I'll do what family does this time." I was sitting at the same back corner table when she arrived. The hostess directed her to me, and she sat across from me. "Do you have to go back today?" I asked. "Nope. You asked me to take the afternoon off, so here I am," she replied. Hearing that, I ordered for both of us since I knew what she liked. "Bourbon at this hour? Must be the end of the world," she joked. "Pretty much," I said. "Okay, Carly. Here's the thing. I've wanted you to come work for me for a while. I get that you want to make your own way and not feel like you're getting special treatment. But it's not about that. You're really good at what you do, and you're not getting the recognition you deserve where you're at. I really need you now." "Look, Dan, I appreciate the offer. I really do. I'm just not sure how it would go down. We get along fine, but what happens if you're my boss?" "I've heard some horror stories about family working together." "Okay, Carr. I didn't want to resort to this, but I'm really in a bind here. When I said I need you to work for my company, I meant it. I need you to step in as CEO. You'll be in charge until Gina and Sue are ready to take over. I need you to guide and train them for that role. When they hit 30, you can start handing off duties if you think they're ready. Gina will likely be COO, and Sue will be CEO. By then, you can retire or consult occasionally." "Dan, you're starting to worry me. If I'm running your company and grooming your daughters, what's your plan? You didn't mention that part." "This is why I hoped you'd just accept my offer. I didn't want to drop this bombshell on you now. I wanted to break it to you differently. But now, I have to lay it out. Carly, I found out something a week ago, something nobody else knows. I'm sick. I have pancreatic cancer. There's no cure. I might have 6 months left, maybe less. It's going downhill fast. And Kim, she's cheating on me with one of her college students. I'm setting things up for the girls, and I need you to handle the estate. Kim won't get a cent. Everything's going into trusts you'll manage with my lawyer's help. I've already drafted a will outlining that. I've transferred ownership of the company to an LLC where you, Gina, and Sue are now the owners. I've also sold the house to the firm, so it's under the LLC too. You need to give notice at your job, then start spending evenings and weekends at my office for the next couple of weeks. We'll use that time to get you up to speed so you can take over once you're done with your current job. I'll stick around to help for a week or two, but not longer than that." We sat silently for a moment. She was processing what I'd just told her, and I was waiting for her response. Our food arrived, and we ate quietly. When the waitress cleared our plates, Carly asked for another round of bourbon. "You're putting me in a tough spot," she finally said. "But of course, I'll do it. I don't have much of a choice." "I know, I'm sorry. I wish things weren't like this. There are a couple more things I'll need your help with, but we can discuss that later." "Will I be mad about those too?" she asked, smiling. "You have no idea," I replied. So we spent the rest of the day going over the company and what she needed to do to prepare. She wasn't an engineer, but her role was mainly on the business side. I told her I'd promote one of my senior engineers to help her with that aspect. We returned to my office and started going through the accounts and other necessary information. Before we headed home, she used my computer to draft a resignation letter for her job. Things started moving quickly after that. I felt myself getting more tired every day. I spent long hours at the office managing the company and training Carly in the evenings. We even put in several hours on weekends. Kim began to worry about how tired I looked. I'd come home, grab a quick meal, then crash in bed. Our bed life disappeared. Kim tried talking to me about my long hours, but I assured her it was just temporary. I explained I had a couple of big projects and some changes to make things smoother later on. She wasn't thrilled, but seemed to get it. It was Friday, Kim's last day at her old job. She'd officially take over on Monday. The PI finished their investigation, and I sat in their office reviewing the findings. Kim was indeed having an affair with the football player. They'd meet 3 times a week at a motel off campus. There were photos and even a video taken through a partly open curtain. It was clear what was happening. I thanked the PI, settled the bill, and left with the file and a thumb drive. Sunday evening, Carly and I wrapped up our discussion, making sure she was ready to take charge the next morning. It had been a long day, and I was feeling exhausted. I knew I had to tie up loose ends that week before I became too weak to do so. "All right, Carly, we've covered most of what you need to do. Starting at 7 a.m. tomorrow, you're in charge. We've met with the lawyer and accountant, and all the necessary paperwork is signed and notarized. You're officially responsible for the trusts and the LLC. I won't give you specifics, but I'll need you to bail me out when my lawyer calls." "Darn, you're planning something reckless, aren't you?" "It depends on your perspective, but yeah, probably." "Okay, but murderers don't usually get bail." "No one's going to die. I want them to regret their actions, but stay alive." "Crap. So you don't want Kim to bail you out? Do you doubt she'd even be willing?" "I won't physically harm her, but I'm not sure she'd want to help." "All right." Wednesday afternoon, around 2 o'clock, I was hunched down behind a large SUV next to my wife's car. It sat parked in the motel lot. I could hear them chatting as they approached the car. Time was of the essence. He was already bigger and stronger than me. Plus, he had the endurance of a top athlete. Meanwhile, my illness had weakened my own strength and stamina. I heard the car unlock with a beep from his fob. He chuckled at something my wife said as she opened her door. When he went for his door, I attacked. Swinging the bat, I spun from behind the SUV. Kim's eyes widened in shock at the sight of me, and I did what I had to. My body stiffened and convulsed before everything went black. When I woke up, I found myself lying on the pavement, face down with my hands cuffed behind my back. It turned out that a patrol car happened to be passing by just as I started my attack. The cops witnessed me rushing out from behind the SUV and jumping on my wife's lover. They tased me as I was about to strike his left elbow, and 3 more patrol cars arrived along with an ambulance. After I regained consciousness, they escorted me to one of the cars and placed me inside. Meanwhile, my wife was frantically explaining the situation to a policewoman. Later, they took me to the police station and processed my arrest. They put me in an interrogation room and tried the usual psychological tactics, leaving me alone for a while, good cop, bad cop routine, and suggesting that confessing would make everything better. Seriously? Did they expect a confession? Those tricks only work on people who care about what happens to them. But I already knew my fate. I was going to die, and nothing would change that. The DA had a strong case, and she was aware of it. The backlog of cases due to the COVID made it even more pressing to resolve cases efficiently. Why go through the motions when the outcome seemed clear? She made a proposal which my lawyer presented to me. I refused. Now we are back at the beginning of this story. I was surprised when Kim visited me in jail. My arraignment was done and bail was set, but Carly, who was supposed to bail me out, was hesitant after witnessing the chaos. She agreed to bail me out but wanted me to wait a couple of days first. "I'm sorry," she started. "Okay," I replied. It didn't really mean anything to me. There were no emotions or romance involved. It was just Act? I finished her sentence. Yeah, he was just so big and confident. It's like his presence fills the room. And well, he was bigger than you and, recovered quicker. Congratulations. I'm happy he could bring you joy. Her mood had shifted drastically. Tears streamed down her face, and she swiftly left the room. Oh well. The next day, I was out on bail. Carly picked me up and drove me back to the office. Well, you succeeded in ruining his life. He won't be able to play sports again, not even casually. His right hand is completely shattered, and they estimate he'll only regain 50% function at best. Both knees are wrecked, and while he'll walk again, that's about it. His elbow won't fully extend either, Carly said as we sat down in her office. So I accomplished what I set out to do, I replied. Why cause so much damage? She asked. Simple, he took something valuable from me, so I decided to reciprocate. He stole my wife, I took away his football career. An eye for an eye, a future for a future. You realize they'll likely sue? She pointed out. Sue who for what? Me? By the time it reaches court, I'll be long gone. They can't touch my estate since I've pretty much depleted it. The girls are independent adults, and Kim has no money for them to claim. There's nothing to collect. Plus, I've already distanced myself from the firm, so they can't target that either, I explained. Okay, what's your plan now? Simple, I'm going to pass away. I declined the offered deal. It'll take a few months before the trial, but I won't be around by then. You really should talk to your daughters. They're really upset about what happened. I was planning to do that tonight. Actually, they're on their way now. I've booked the conference room for you for the day. 30 minutes later, I sat across from my daughters in the conference room. Dad, what the heck? The news is blowing up with videos of you jumping on that kid with a bat. And why was Mom there? Gina demanded. I passed them a file. Mom was there because they had just left the motel where they were together. He was Mom's lover. That file is from the private investigator I hired. Did you realize he was a star football player at the university, set to be drafted early? Yeah, I knew. That's why I did it. He took away my love, so I took away his dream. But now he's going to sue you, and you'll probably end up in jail. Neither of those will happen. I made sure I had nothing to lose. The firm's not in my name anymore. It's owned by Carly and you. All the money's in trust funds for you. The house is in your names too. Carly's in charge. Your mom can't touch any of it. What happens to her is not my concern anymore. Can't you reconcile before you go to jail? No way. And like I said, I'm not going to prison. Dad, come on, you're definitely going down. We've watched all the shows and read all the articles. There's no way you'll get away with it. I'm not trying to escape the consequences, I said, my emotions bubbling up as my daughters entered the room. It hit me like a ton of bricks. I wouldn't see their college graduations, walk them down the aisle, or hold my grandkids. Tears streamed down my face. Then I felt their comforting embrace. What's wrong, Daddy? Susan asked, her voice trembling. I'm dying, sweethearts. I have a terminal cancer, maybe 2 months left at best, I choked out. No! They both cried out. Suddenly, Carly joined us, wrapping her arms around us. We cried together until we could gather ourselves. Then I guided them back to their seats. As you can see, I won't be around for my trial or any lawsuit. They won't get anything from me. I got rid of everything before the incident. They can't touch the house either. It's owned by the LLC now. The money's in a trust for you both when you're 30. I'm broke. I even donated my investments to charity. Why didn't you share this with us earlier? Gina asked. I learned about it a month ago. Right after leaving the doctor's office, I spotted your mom's car leaving the university, with her lover driving and her in the passenger's seat. I followed them to a motel, saw them enter a room, and waited 2 hours for them to leave. It hit me hard. Just found out I had only a few months to live, then discovered her betrayal. Spent the next 2 days figuring out what to do. This is the result. We talked and cried together for an hour. Then we got back to business. I brought Carly in, and we discussed the firm's new structure. After Gina graduates, she'll work with the engineers, then manage her projects. Eventually, she'll help Carly run the company. The goal is for Gina to become COO by age 30. Sue, upon graduating, will assist Carly in the business aspect of the firm, working closely with her. Eventually, Sue will step up as CEO when she feels ready. With Gina handling operations and Sue handling business, things should run smoothly. Carly will be there to offer guidance and mediate between them. A week later, I was staying with my sister, and I hadn't spoken to Kim since her jail visit. Sitting on Carly's couch, I found myself under bright lights, facing an attractive redhead across from me. Good morning. This is Amy Brown with Crap News. I'm here with Dan Malloy, who's facing charges of grievous bodily harm for the attack on star wide receiver Jamal Washington. Mr. Malloy, you've agreed to this interview. Aren't you concerned about the judge's gag order on the case? Amy began, addressing the cameras. Not worried at all. There really isn't much that he can do about it. By the time this airs and he sees it, he won't be able to do anything about it. But he could cite you with contempt and put you in jail. Well, I do have contempt for the divorce laws in this country. Look at them. A wife can screw around on her husband all she wants. If her husband tries to divorce her, she gets the kids, house, child support, and maintenance. She will usually get most of the other assets as well. The poor bastard that married her ends up living in a cheap apartment eating top ramen while paying most of his income for his ex-wife to party with her string of lovers. They reward the cheaters and punish those who did nothing wrong. Aren't you worried about going to jail? Not in the least. What if you get a long prison sentence? Well, I haven't actually been found guilty of anything. We have the innocent until proven guilty rule in this country. But there's a lot of evidence against you, right? Yeah, I know, but I'm not worried about it. Okay, but what about Jamal's lawsuit? He wants over $40 million for lost income, pain, and suffering. He won't get anything from me. I have nothing to give. I'm broke and don't own anything. But you have a successful engineering firm and a huge house. No, I don't. I sold both the business and the house more than a month ago. I put all my belongings into trust funds to ensure my children's security if anything happened to me. It was all done legally and ethically with proper tax payments. I cashed out all my investments and donated everything to charity. I don't even have a salary to take. Okay, back to the attack. You've never denied doing it, but you haven't explained why. Why did you do that to him, and why so brutally? It seems like you intentionally aimed at areas that would ruin any chance he had in the NFL. Oh, that was definitely my aim. If the police hadn't tasered me then, I would have broken his other elbow and hit a few more times in the groin before stopping. I never wanted to destroy him completely, just to disable him and ruin his ability to have kids. The attempted ending charge from the DA is ridiculous. I never wanted him dead. I avoided hitting anywhere fatal. If I did, I would have aimed for his head first instead of his hand. So why did you do that to him? Isn't it clear? Where it happened? In a motel parking lot? Who was with him? My wife. They were cheating. They had just left the room after being in there for 2 hours. If he could take away my most precious thing, my partner, I'd take away his most important thing, his football career. Making him unable to have kids was just a bonus. I get it. You definitely achieved what you wanted. And your wife? She played a part too. Do you have revenge planned for her? I do, but I won't reveal it now. I won't resort to physical violence against her, so no need to worry about that. My revenge for her cheating will be legal. She'll suffer, but she won't be able to stop it. Actually, what I've planned is already done, but she doesn't know yet. When will she find out? When will this interview be shown? All right, back to the possibility of you going to prison. It's not certain. I haven't been convicted yet. Okay then. Why are you so sure you won't be convicted and sent to prison? Let me tell you about something that happened a little over a month ago. I'd been feeling really exhausted and worn out, so I went to the doctor for a checkup. About a week later, I got the results, and they weren't good. Just after leaving the doctor's office, I spotted my wife's car leaving the university campus. It struck me as odd because Jamal, her lover, was driving her car, and Kim was in the passenger seat. I followed them to a motel and waited for 2 hours for them to come out. A couple of things to mention here. Kim works as a certified tutor at the university, essentially part of the faculty. Even though she volunteers, she's still bound by the faculty's regulations regarding student relationships. As a tutor, she holds authority over her students, similar to a professor. I recall a trip to Cancun where I met a few single women professors looking to hook up with college guys for the week. During our conversation, I mentioned that I thought relationships between professors and students were illegal due to the power dynamics involved. They laughed and said, "The law doesn't forbid us from having relations with students. It just says we can't with our students." Well, Jamal happened to be one of Kim's students. So, going back to my response. When I witnessed what happened, I decided to hire a private investigator to gather solid evidence of what I had seen. At the same time, I started making plans based on what the doctor had told me. Originally, these plans included taking care of Kim. However, after witnessing her actions, I removed that part from my plans entirely. Now, everything I did was aimed at ensuring the well-being of my daughters. They were always going to inherit the business eventually, so I just formalized it. I also hired a highly capable businesswoman to serve as CEO and prepare the girls for taking over when they're ready. Additionally, I changed the company's structure from a sole proprietorship to an LLC and transferred authority out of my name. Any money I had was moved to a trust fund for the girls, managed by someone else. I also transferred the ownership of my house to the trust fund as a gift for the girls, so I'm not worried at all about any potential consequences, because I won't be here to face them. The doctor gave me some tough news. I have a highly aggressive pancreatic cancer that's not treatable. Best case scenario, I've got 2 months left. More likely, I'll be gone within a month. My trial won't even start for another 3 months, so what's the point? Locking up a dead body? As for my wife, I'm leaving her with nothing. Maybe our daughters will help her out, but that's not my problem anymore. Plus, I've got evidence of her affair with her student that I'm sending to the university and the authorities. I've got a copy for you too, if you're interested. Just so you know, I'm also sending copies to all the major news outlets. You've really turned their lives upside down. Wasn't that a bit excessive? Not at all. They shattered what little was left of my life. Imagine getting the worst news possible and all you want is comfort from your spouse. Instead, less than half an hour later, you catch them cheating on you. Yes, I'm facing death soon, but they stole my chance to find solace with my wife in my final days. They wrecked what was left of my life, so I did the same to theirs. At least they'll still be alive to try and rebuild. Screw Jamal. He's in college. He can find another career. That's a joke. In case you didn't know, Jamal is far from a model student. The university's investigating him already, and they found out he was only keeping his eligibility to play by having other tutors do his work. He'll probably get kicked out, and any classes he passed will likely be changed to fails for cheating. No degree for him, and no other college will take him either. Maybe he can serve as a warning for other jerks who enjoy messing with married women? I shrugged. All right, that wraps up our time. Thank you for agreeing to this interview. This is Amy Brown with Crap News. Amy gathered her papers and stood. She shook my hand and slipped me a note before leaving. As she exited, a stunning blonde entered and took a seat. A few moments later, she was set, and the bright lights flickered on. This is Jessica Moore with Cunt News. I'm here with... The judge wouldn't be pleased when these interviews aired. I figured it was best to get them all done in one day before he could react. After all, it was my last day of freedom. Tomorrow's location didn't matter much. If he wanted to toss me in jail for contempt, it'd cost him a pretty penny. My lawyer would ensure that. Well, that pretty much wraps it up. I packed up what little I needed before the first interview. The day left me exhausted. Early the next morning, Carly drove me to the hospice where I'd be staying until the end. Yeah, the judge charged me with contempt. He was ready to send cops to jail me until my lawyer and doctor explained my health situation. They made it clear it'd be costly to put me in the infirmary, and they'd tell the media about it. So instead, the judge ordered an ankle monitor for me at the hospice house. I chuckled. There was nowhere for me to go anyway. Carly and the girls visited almost every day. I knew they couldn't always make it, but they were there when they could. Sometimes we'd video chat. They kept me updated on everything. Kim tried to visit, but I didn't allow her on my visitors list. She sent letters with the girls, but I tossed them once they left. I had no interest in anything she had to say. The DA initially wanted to speed up the trial, but my lawyer objected. It soon became clear it didn't matter. I wouldn't be able to attend anyway. Then, my lawyer started a public campaign criticizing the DA for wasting resources on a case where the defendant would die before the trial. Being smart, the DA quietly dropped the case. There was a lawsuit filed, naming both Kim and me. Since we were still married, she'd be responsible for my debts after I died. That gave me a chuckle. Her lover was having one last fling with her. My daughters and Carly are here with me. I'm so tired. I can sense this is the end. I don't want to fight it anymore. I've got nothing left and no reason to keep going. Then another person enters my room slowly. It's Kim, my wife. I haven't seen her since she visited me in jail right after my arrest. Yes, I invited her to come. She nervously comes over to the bed. I'm sorry, she says. I know, I'm sorry too. I went too far with you. No, you didn't. Even if you had left me anything, it would have been taken in the lawsuit. Besides, I'm the one who messed up and had an affair. I forgive you for that. I've asked the girls to make sure you're taken care of. I don't want you to go hungry or be homeless. I forgive you too. It's probably best. That jerk will likely try to take everything I have. As long as I have a roof over my head and enough to get by, I'll be okay. I'm sorry I couldn't be there for you these past few months. That's on me. I'll have to live with that regret forever. Don't blame yourself too much. I walked away from you. I could have confronted you and sorted things out. Instead, I sought revenge. You did what you felt you had to. You had every right to be angry. Just know this. I never stopped loving you. My love for you will last until my last breath. And when that time comes, we'll meet again. And my love for you will endure for eternity. You're my soulmate. I forgot that for a while, but I've come back to it. Now, I see you're tired. Rest, my love. Go in peace. We'll reunite. Daddy drifted off. We all stayed as his breaths gradually slowed until they stopped altogether. The machines beeped into a single tone, and Daddy was gone. I'm Gina. I wrote down the last conversation. I found Daddy's notebook after they took his body away. Reading his words about the past few months of his life, I talked to Mom, Carly, and Sue, and we agreed I should finish his story. Dad had arranged and paid for his funeral in advance. He also set up a funeral fund for Mom's future needs. The burial plots were already bought. We opted for a small, family-only service. We allowed 2 reporters to attend, but we made it clear they shouldn't cause any disruptions. The ceremony went well, and Amy and Jessica were respectful. It's funny, though. I later found out Dad had met both reporters separately at a hotel for one last fling before going to hospice. Jamal did pursue the lawsuit against Dad's estate, but, as you know, there wasn't any estate to go after. They tried targeting the business and the trust funds, but we managed to get those lawsuits dismissed. Dad had no ties to the firm during the attack, and the trust funds were protected. Plus, Carly, Sue, and I weren't involved in any of it. Mom didn't fare well. She was hit with a $20 million judgment, even though she didn't have anything they could seize. Sue and I unofficially hired her as our cook and housekeeper. She gets free room and board, plus we make sure she has enough cash for her entertainment. Everything's legit, as far as anyone can prove. His lawyers poke around now and then, but they won't get paid unless he can collect, and he's broke. Tough luck for them. They'll probably give up eventually unless Mom suddenly inherits a fortune. But we're keeping everything out of her name. She's been through enough already. Mom doesn't really date. She hangs out with her friends in groups and sometimes stays out all night. None of it's serious. Just friends with benefits. She's dead set against getting into another serious relationship. She'll stay single until she reunites with Dad. As for Jamal, he's living with his folks. He stays on the ground floor because stairs are tough for him. He got kicked out of school as expected, and he's not even trying to find another one. He just sits around playing video games, waiting to cash in on his lawsuit. That's probably why his parents tolerate him, though I've heard they're getting fed up. Jamal might have to choose between finding a job or finding a new place to live. So that's where things are at. Sue and I took over the company, and Aunt Carly drops by to help out sometimes. She's enjoying retirement, living the good life. She even treats Mom to cruises a couple times a year. Sue's got a serious boyfriend now, and things are looking promising. As for me, I haven't met Mr. Right yet, but there are a few Miss Right Nows in the picture. One of them, Amy, might be dropping the now soon. She's a local news reporter.